Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. My name is Mars, and today we're going to do the complete guide for Veritas of the Light, who, for any of you who don't know, is my favorite unit in the game. So obviously, I'm very excited about her 7-star form to finally arrive to the global edition of the game. The first thing that I'll say before we dive into this guide is kind of speaking to the nature of units like Veritas of the Light. Many people kind of dismiss her. They look at her kit and they're like, she's okay, but she's not that good. Light Veritas is what I would consider to be a very specialized unit, whereas other units are very diversified. So a good example of a specialized unit would be Veritas of the Light. She kind of has a niche that she dominates. A good diversified unit would be someone like Zargaboth, who does several things very well at once. And so a good analogy is that if you if you want to fillet a fish, you use a fillet knife. You don't use a Swiss Army knife. The same thing goes with the units in Brave Exvius. If you want to most effectively handle a given situation, you want to use the sharpest tool for the job. Now, Veritas of the Light is the sharpest tool when it comes to taking down anything that she has a killer for, which is about half the things in the game, as long as they are weak to or not immune to light damage. So, Calcabrina, as we're going to see here, is a fantastic example of something that she is highly specialized against, because she has 125% killers against both demons and spirits. So Calcabrinas get wrecked by Veritas of the Light. She's literally the best unit in the game in this particular situation. I don't believe any other 2 units alone can do as much damage against the Calcabrina fights as Veritas of the Light. So, yeah, let's just see. I hope this kills it in one hit. I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah. So, as you can see, Veritas of the Light does not shine in every situation, but in the situations where she does shine, she is one of the top contenders in that particular niche. So, for example, if you wanted to take her against Venomous Vines, she's completely useless. She can't do anything because the boss is immune to light. But Calcabrina is susceptible to breaks, susceptible to light, it is demon and spirit, so Veritas of the Light is the absolute queen when it comes to taking down units like that. So, let's get a little bit into her kit and what she can do at 7 stars, what's different about her, kind of some tips and tricks for how to make the most use out of her, because I am a huge fan. Let's take Citra because it's Veritas of the Light, why not? So, Veritas of the Light at 7 stars functions almost exactly the same as she did before, which is fine for me. Like, I know a lot of people were looking for more, they were hoping for more. Honestly, I wasn't looking for that. Veritas of the Light at 6 stars offered a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed, so I was looking for that to be expanded upon. So at 7 stars, you'll still see her use moves like Saint Buster, which is her AoE finishing move, still very, very strong. Divine Shot is still her prevalent chaining ability that imperils light by 65%, also very good. The new skills that she gets at 7 stars includes Lucent Inoculation, which boosts light resistance by 100% for the entire party, but not the caster itself. So in the case that we have a fight with a lot of light damage, this will be a really nice thing to have. Another skill that she gets at 7 stars is Photolysis, or however you choose to say that, which removes some status reductions, Stop, Charm, and Berserk for one ally. So the fact that you can remove Berserk is actually a huge deal. It makes it so that she's the only person in the game who can do that. So even if, you know, like Venomous Vines is obviously like the most recent example I can think of with Berserk that was really a pain in the butt. I don't think you would take Light Veritas even for that benefit in that fight, but if you wanted to, you totally could. Her Limit Burst is still that really amazing defense and spirit break that was OP in the 6-star era of the game. It is still just as strong in the 7-star era because currently there are still no units that can break defense and spirit by a greater amount. You'll find that Malphasy can break by the same amount with her cooldown skill, but it doesn't have the same ability to keep uptime like Light Veritas does. Now the big thing that they added for her 7-star form is Saint Eraser, which is basically Saint Buster, only much prettier looking. It's a cooldown skill that you can use every 5 turns, and it does roughly a billion damage. Like, it hits so hard, and it's amazing. So people are like, okay, so what? She's basically the same. At 7 stars, her passives kind of back her up a little bit more. You'll find that at 7 stars, she gets true dual wield, 50% attack and 50% magic, which is great. When you have her Trustmaster reward equipped, it also gives 20% to all 6 of the main stats. So attack, magic, defense, spirit, HP, and MP, and she gets another 20% magic. So she kind of doubles down on what she was already doing. Now the big thing that she gets from her Trustmaster equipped is an extra 25% to each of the 4 killer abilities that she already has as part of her kit, which you'll see under License to Kill +2. Now this skill is what makes her really good. This is half of the enemy types in the game. There's only 9 of them, and she has 125% killers for 4 of them. So if you're coming across demons, machines, fairies, or undead, Veritas of the Light has an opportunity to shine, because as you saw with Saint Buster, that super pretty cooldown ability, light damage, does a ton of damage, that's a 40 times modifier. So very strong finishing move, obviously, but if you have 125% killer, that is another 40 times to the modifier plus another 25%, so that's another 50. That turns Saint Eraser into a 90 times modifier against the particular opponent. But wait, there's more. Because she already has these killers going for her, you can stack additional ones on top of it. A good way to do this, and it works best against demons. Honestly, if there's a demon that is vulnerable to light, Veritas of the Light will, for a very long time, be one of the best things to kill it. And that's because you can throw things like Cursed Mouthpiece on her, which is 50% demon killer. And you'll see, I don't have any other killer materias, but I have Diabolos equipped, and with her own passive, she's at 300% demon killer. So that Saint Eraser, that's a 40 times modifier, while against demons, it's a 160 times modifier. So, yeah, they took Light Veritas, they didn't really tweak her a whole lot, they added a couple utility things, and they made her incredibly good against the things that she was already good against. Now, if she goes up against something like Antonella is a great example. She can be a good damage dealer for Antonella, but she won't shine as much because it's a plant enemy. She doesn't have killers for plants, so she's not going to do as well in those situations, and that's why I say Veritas of the Light is more of a fillet knife than she is a Swiss Army knife. She has one thing, one job, she does it very well. And if she's not right for the job, she's not right for the job. And that's the way the game goes with a lot of highly specialized units. So, if you're going to use Veritas of the Light, keep in mind I would say her best use is with finishing. She's probably better off finishing using Saint Buster or Saint Eraser, because that's where you're going to get the most damage out of. But you should not be deterred from chaining, if that's something you want to do, because as you just saw, she's still one-shot Calcabrina with Divine Shot +2. So there aren't any other units in the game that can currently boast the ability to just one-shot both fights of that boss, just as the same unit. So, you know, this means that you can basically tell anybody that thinks Light Veritas is bad that they're ill-informed. She's very specialized. She has her places where she shines, and when she shines brightest, and then she has other places where she's totally useless, and that's just the way that it goes. So then the question becomes, how do you build Veritas of the Light at 7 stars? So let's jump into her builds. So Veritas of the Light does not have any hard or fast rules when it comes to building her up, with the exception that you want her TMR equipped, which I totally did not throw in here. Sworn 6, Pride Light. You always want that equipped because it gives, it's a good TMR to begin with, 20% HP, 40% magic, 50% reduction on target chance, and it gives 20% to all 6 major stats, HP, MP, attack, defense, spirit, and magic. So really good one to have equipped. As you can see, it's pretty easy to bump her over the 300% cap on stats. I personally recommend a dual wield build that utilizes a throwing weapon and a gun. I know that, you know, with this build here, I'm showing some super TMRs, I'm showing some other stuff. This is just an example. You can just as easily go in here and replace Shooting Star with Hawkeye, which is a good example of an item that you get with... Why did it take that off? Hawkeye is a throwing weapon that you can get in a story expedition. Run this thing through Item World a couple of times, and you might get lucky with, you know, some decent stats on it, and that works just fine too. As far as guns go, you can really use any gun that you have. Just be mindful of the ones from raids or events that have elements on them, because you don't really want that. You want a gun that is non-elemental, so that you don't mix and match the elements. So for example, like Icy Death or the Linebacker, you know, those are from raids. But Quasar came from Light Veritas' original event. That one's a good one if you have that. Golden Submachine Gun is currently the best gun to use on her, although Barrett from the next FF7 event will come with a better hybrid gun. Ultimately, it's up to you. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure she has a gun, make sure she has a throwing weapon, because her passives are so heavily tied to that. So again, you can just run that through Item World, boom, get some nice stats on it, and you're sitting pretty. As far as the rest goes, she can only equip helmets, so definitely recommended to equip whichever helmet gives you the most attack or magic. However, you can choose instead to go with something like Cursed Mouthpiece, which gives Demon Killer. Now, as far as armor goes, she can equip medium and heavy armor. I definitely recommend the heavy armor because once she's enhanced her, she has, I believe it's an attack and magic passive that is linked to it, so pick any heavy armor. I think Iron Colossus is the best budget option because you can get that from... Can I spell? Hello? There we go. Yeah, we already know I can't do math, and now we're discovering today that I cannot spell. So Iron Colossus, that's a good one to go to. Ravenheart is obviously Malphasio's super TMR. Probably, I would imagine most people don't have this, and that's totally fine. You can use Noctis's TMR, or you can use Jiraiya's TMR. You can use the Omega Medal. In fact, it's highly recommended to use the Omega Medal if you've passed that 300% attack and magic. Which you can see even by trading in the Omega Medal, we are still above the cap, and that gives us a bunch of nice flat attack and magic. So you could also even use Awakened Rain's super TMR, that gives flat attack and magic. Just make sure that as you're building your own Veritas of the Light, plug in what you have into the builder, because that's the only reliable way, unless you want to do math in your head, which I know that I can't do. Plug it into the builder so that you can see where you're making progress on your stats, and so that you're not overcapping on any of her stats. Now, Adventurer 5 is always recommended on her because it gives that nice 40% attack and magic. It's the dream for hybrid damage dealers. And then her own TMR is definitely recommended. You can use General Offensive or Maxwell's TMR for another 30% attack and magic. But as you can see right here, we're already 10% over, so you could even trade this for... what's her name? Shoot, I can't remember her name. She's the Whips and Chains lady, the ninja. Oh, she was with Jiraiya's event, and I forgot what her name is. Anyways, that's 20% attack magic that you could equip as well, and you would not lose out on anything because that's overfilled. You could also use Nyx's TMR. Now, TF-29 Agent, which is Adam Jens's TMR, is something that you can use because she is dual wielding, and the nice thing about this one is that it gives attack and magic for throwing weapons and guns equipped, which is what you're going to have equipped on Veritas of the Light anyways. So you get 20% attack on true dual wield, and you get 60% attack for having a gun and a throwing weapon equipped. So that's kind of the dream right there. TF-29 Agent is great if you've got your killer passives all taken care of, which with this build with Cursed Mouthpiece right here and Diabolos, that's 300% Demon Killer. So you can fill that up with true dual wield or other things like that, and that's the way to go. Now, as far as stat priorities go, you'll see that, you know, with this build, we kind of came out with more attack than magic. There is kind of a method to the madness that you should choose with how you build Veritas of the Light. It is true that every single boss that has been released in Global Edition has higher defense than Spirit so far, which means that magic is going to play a greater role in her damage than attack will. However, there is a tipping point for each and every boss where some amount of attack will equal more damage than a similar or lesser amount of magic. So what that means is there will be times where trading 1 point of magic for 2 points of attack will increase your outgoing damage. And if you're not sure, if you're looking for the absolute best way to build your unit for a particular fight, come to this part of the builder and, where is it? Input the defense and spirit of the enemy that you're fighting. So if you know that your enemy has 100 defense and they have 50 spirit, this will tell you, when you tell it to calculate for hybrid damage up here, it will probably calculate for the next 10 hours, but once it's done calculating, it will tell you the build that will maximize your damage based on both attack and magic combined, because that's when Light Veritas shines, when you utilize both of them to their fullest potential. I typically simplify it because ain't nobody got time for the builder to finish calculating all of that because of how long it takes. So what I typically do is if I can trade 1 magic for 2 attack, I always make the trade. And so that results in the build that we first started with, which is a very true hybrid build, with mine it being over 1300 attack, 1300 magic, and she just obliterates everything. Now, if you're newer to the game, I wouldn't stress out too much about that. You can still do a rod build, but it does require you to equip something like the Genji Glove or Dual Wield, because her dual wield ability is only linked to throwing weapons and guns, unfortunately. So you could still do a Glory of Evil build where you use a rod, and that'll help her magic quite a lot. And you can use Rod Mastery and the Materias and all those other things. Still very, very viable, still does quite a lot of damage. It's just not the best build anymore, especially since we have so many hybrid options. So that in a nutshell is kind of some of the build idea behind her. Just the strict no-nos are avoid elemental weapons, and that includes Freyavia's Needle. I've seen people try to run Freyavia's Needle and then go Letters and Arms or things like that, and you're mixing your elements, so you're going to hurt your damage. So with that, and the other thing to keep in mind about swords is that it would be good for her if only she could equip robes, but since she can't, you can't use things like Kunshiro's TMR, and you kind of have to make do with what you can get. But luckily TF29 Agent is really amazing for her, so that's something you can enjoy. And that's about it for builds. So with that, we're going to get on to the verdict of, is she worth it for you? So we asked the question, is Veritas of the Light worth your investment? Now, if you've seen my guild pile at the top, you can see I am basically broke. It is pretty tragic in Casa de Mars right now in terms of guild. And that's because I love to play with many different units. But the thing that I will say about Veritas of the Light is that whether or not she is worth it to you, it will probably depend on where you're at in the game. If you're a newer player, specialized units are going to be great in the times where they're great, but units with a higher diversity of skills are going to probably serve you better while you're starting out. So a good example of this is CG Hyo is like the perfect unit for you to start the game with. CG Hyo can chain with many people, he can do a ton of damage by himself, he's got very flexible weapon options. He's just great. He's very new player friendly in that, you know, he's relatively easy to get started on builds. Like, I have friends who've been playing the game for like a couple months and they've already got like 1800 attack Hyos and things like that, which is great. I mean, that's what you need to clear the content in this game. So if you're a newer player, Veritas of the Light is a great unit, but maybe not like the perfect one for you. Now, if you're a player who's been playing for a while, maybe, you know, 6 months to a year or longer, and you've kind of got your footing in the game, you know, you've got your bread and butter units, like, let's look at my 7-star roster real quick. We'll kind of pull some examples. So, and don't judge me, because I have a bunch that I've awakened and I want to do stuff with, but, you know, time is the problem. Anyways, this is why I'm broke. Enjoy. So, for example, if you've got your bread and butter units already, so Zargaboth is somebody that I would consider to be a bread and butter unit because he serves a very important role and he'll be a part of your party for a long time. Okay, got him locked down. You got your tank locked down. I've got Ayaka, so I've got my healer locked down. You know, I've got a lot of those critical roles taken care of. That's when you can start looking at your other more specialized tools in the toolkit. And that's where I'm like, all right, let's look at Light Veritas and see what she can do. and that's when the investment makes sense. So for me, I wouldn't put Light Veritas above some of your more critical units, your evergreen units, the ones that will be good year round, like Hyo. I mean, invest in Hyo. You're going to use him for the next year or more because he's that versatile, he's that powerful, he's that good. Light Veritas, you're going to use her when demons roll around, you're going to use her when spirits roll around, or the undead or machines that aren't immune to light, and she is that super sharp tool that's perfect for taking them down. But if they're immune to light, or for whatever reason she's just not effective against them, it's kind of a wasted investment. So I definitely consider her to be kind of on the fence. You know, make the decision with a little bit of judgment. Do you have your other things taken care of? Or, like, as always, the golden rule for this game for me is, do you like the unit? Do you want to use the unit? Then make no excuse. Use the unit. If you like it, you use it, you want it, whatever, go for it. And that's how I feel about Veritas of the Light. She was one of the first units that I actually ever actively pulled for, and I've been using her ever since, and I plan to continue to use her. I absolutely adore her. So for me, it's like a no-brainer. Gotta use Veritas of the Light. But for other people, you know, if you're trying to make the decision, stick with the stuff that's most important. 7-star units are so expensive. It's making me sad. Making my wallet super sad. I don't know how to deal with this anymore. But yeah, that's personally my verdict. If you have some of the more unique pieces of gear, like the golden submachine gun or Maxwell's TMR, that would help build out her power for yourself personally, it might be worth the investment because you have some of those things. But again, totally up to you. For me, I love the unit, so I awaken the unit. And also, you'll see in my list, I have lots of units that maybe I don't love, but I still awaken them anyways because achievements and trust moogles that you get from fusing dupes and stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of the qualification that I would give to it. Worth it if you love her, worth it if you can build her, worth it if you've got your other bases covered, but probably not worth it if you are a newer player or if you're strapped for cash like I am. I need to exercise a little more judgment. But yeah, that's the complete guide for Veritas of the Light. So please let me know if you like this video, if I missed anything, because I know that when I'm in the weeds and I'm talking about it, sometimes I forget things. So let me know in the comments, and if you want to share ideas or share input, you can share those in the comments, or you can come say hi in the Discord and share some ideas for the next complete unit guide, and that's where I will see you next time.